Welcome to our 5 Wishes workshop via Zoom. My name is Louise Joyce and I'm the Director of Community Development at Yolo Hospice. Your Yolo Hospice team for today's meeting is Ellie Slavin, Citizens Who Care Volunteer Coordinator, and Daniel Romandia, our Marketing and Communications Specialist. Our team will be working silently in the background to help ensure a successful workshop. As a convenience to you, we are recording this series. As a participant, the link to the recording will be available to you via email next week. A little about Yolo Hospice. As the first established hospice in the Sacramento Valley, we have the longest regional track record as experts in caring for people who have a life-limiting illness. We currently serve more than 180 communities in the 5 counties of Yolo, Colusa, Sacramento, Solano, and Sutter. We are your experts for palliative and end-of-life care. Please reach out to us directly if you have any questions on this chapter of your life for you or your loved ones. Volunteers play a crucial role at Yolo Hospice. If you enjoyed this presentation and the work that we are doing, please reach out to us. Whatever makes your heart sing, we will find a place for you as a volunteer at Yolo Hospice. We will be utilizing the following Zoom best practices to ensure a successful workshop. All participants are muted. Presenters will unmute themselves when it is time to present. Please use the chat box for your comments and questions. To ensure a safe and secure meeting, we are asking that participants do not post any links in the chat box, as Yolo Hospice cannot guarantee the security of those links. Please only click on links posted by Yolo Hospice. The goal of this workshop series is for all participants to complete their 5 wishes by the end of the 6-week program. We are working with the material 1 wish at a time, and we ask that you complete the work from each wish before the following week's session. We do check in with you at each wish to confirm that you have completed the previous wish. The link to your free digital copy of the 5 wishes was included in the email that we sent you. We'll also be posting that link in the chat. The 5 wishes is a fillable PDF document for your information. You may also simply print it off and fill in your information offline. And now I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters. We are proud to partner with Aging with Dignity, the makers of this workshop's 5 wishes. Today we are joined by the president of Aging with Dignity, Paul Malley, who will guide you through the 3rd wish, how comfortable I want to be. And I'd also like to thank Alison Kent from Listen Inc. for joining us today. Alison will graphically record your questions and comments. Please use the chat box for your comments and questions during the presentation. Your names will not be used in her drawings, and Paul will utilize Alison's graphic recording for the Q&A portion of the workshop. Alison, can you please take a moment to share your screen and an example of your work?
Yes, there seems to be a slight slowdown, but it's on its way.
It looks like it is. It says has started screen sharing. Oh, interesting.
This may not be going quite to plan, so
that's perhaps, okay, Alison. Yeah, we can let it go. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
For those questions who do not get answered during the workshop, we'll continue to work with Aging with Dignity offline and get them answered. We will then forward you via email a picture of Alison's graphic recording of wish 3 with your questions answered. Before we begin, please answer the short poll survey coming up on your screen, and I'm going to launch that right now. Let's see. Answers are coming in. Thank you so much. We appreciate your feedback. I'm going to end that right there. Okay. And now I'm going to turn it over to you, Paul. Please take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Louise and Allison and all of the Yolo team there. It's great to be back with you. And I guess I'm Thursday morning group there in California, and you're my Thursday afternoon group coming to you from Florida and East Coast time. It's great to be back with you, with everybody in our Thursday morning group to talk about 5 wishes and to pick up where we left off. As Louise mentioned, everyone who's participating in this workshop has the link to 5 wishes that you can use digitally. And if you've already started it, that's fantastic, and you're making great progress. If you haven't started it yet, that's okay too. If you don't have access to the document, that's okay too. You can always go back into either the chat or in your email from Yolo Hospice and access your 5 wishes that way. So we're going to dive into today. I don't know if it's okay for me to reflect my bias, but these parts of 5 wishes are kind of my favorites to talk about. Not that I don't like talking about wishes 1 and 2, or that they're not important, because they are very important. But what I love about talking about wishes 3, 4, and 5 is that I can share with you some of the experiences that I've gathered over the past 20 years and working at Aging with Dignity and hearing stories about 5 wishes and the use of it. And I can tell you that without a doubt, I don't have numbers to back this up, but I just know personally that when families or close friends have a recollection of how 5 wishes help them, they almost always talk about wishes 3, 4, and 5. Their recollection, their memory, what they recall, and how they use 5 wishes with their loved one, it almost always has an anchor or a root in wishes 3, 4, and 5, which is kind of ironic, because what we're going to talk about in these next few wishes are all the things that aren't usually considered in an advance directive or a living will. So especially for those of you who have participated in this workshop series, if you have an existing advance directive, maybe that you created with an attorney some time ago, it almost surely doesn't include these things that are included in wish 3, 4, and 5. And I think that's what makes this all the more important to go along with the rest of 5 wishes. So I'm going to bring up my screen and share a presentation with you as we walk through a few slides to outline the significant parts of wish 3, both in kind of pointing out why some of these things are important, and also what to think about as you're filling out your own wish 3 of 5 wishes. So just for a little bit of context and where we are, in the first 2 sessions, we talked about wishes 1 and 2. In wish 1, we had the chance to pick somebody who would be our voice, somebody who would speak for us if we're not able to speak for ourselves in making our own medical decisions. That was wish number 1. Then wish number 2 that we talked about last week was specific instruction regarding life support treatment, when we would want it and when we would not want it. And if you remember, one of the first things that I called out when we were talking about wish 2 was the importance of not stopping at wish number 1. And the reason that I mentioned that and kind of put up a flashing light about it is that what we understand from a lot of folks is that the people that kind of jumped over the hurdle of the taboo of talking about end of life care planning, most of them would have done one of the most important things, which is naming your healthcare agent. But too many people stop there. They think, well, as long as I've named somebody, then I've done my part, and I don't need to get into any other specifics. And we talked about how dangerous that can be, because then that person who's named as an agent knows that you've chosen them to carry this responsibility, but then they feel kind of rudderless if you've never talked about what is important to you and how you would go about making decisions for yourself. So wish 2 allowed you the chance to give some specific instruction about that question of life support treatment, when you'd want it or when you'd not want it. So now comes the pivot, where we're going to turn to wish 3. And as you look at wish 3 at the top of that page, and actually it's not even included in this image from wish 3, but there is an introductory paragraph that's in italics. And what that basically says is that we realize that the requests that are made in wishes 3, 4, and 5 don't add any legal obligations to your family or to your caregivers. So for example, If in wish number 4, you talk about the specific types of music that you'd want played, or you have a playlist and you want to have specific music played, somebody is not going to be held legally liable if they don't play exactly the music that you've included in your playlist, right? So there's a difference here in that introductory paragraph, just kind of calls this out to say these preferences in wishes 3, 4, and 5 are personal care preferences. It's pieces of the puzzle of what you should know about me if I'm the one filling it out, what I want you to know about me that helps you as my caregiver, as my friends or close family. What's important for you to know that helps me, in the case of wish 3, to feel comfortable. So again, looking at the context, we've talked about where we've been, naming a healthcare agent, giving instruction about life support treatment. Today, we're going to talk about comfort, and really especially physical comfort. What would help me, what would help you if you were very sick? What things bring you comfort, physical comfort? Because then in wish 4, we'll talk more about how you want people to treat you. So that's more, not just about physical comfort, but who would you like to be around you? What can they do? Not just to help you feel comfortable, but to help you feel that your dignity is honored and maintained. And wish 5 will look even further into the future, saying, here's what I want my family, my close friends, my healthcare providers to know about me. And here's what I would want to have happen after I've died. So that's just a pin in the radar to say, that's where we're looking. But today, the focus on wish 3 is about comfort, and specifically physical comfort. So the way that this is set up, and all of wish 3 is on one half-page piece of paper. It's a bullet list, just a list of statements. And these statements are included in 5 wishes because these are the expressions of people who have walked down this road before us, families who have walked down this road before us, who have said, these are the things that I'd like to express, or if I could express something that was important to me regarding my comfort, this is an example of the type of thing I'd want to say. So remember, this list is not meant to be inclusive of anything that you might want to say. So that means you can use any of the space in the margins on wish 3. Remember that you can attach pages to it. If things are important to you and they're not included on this list, it doesn't mean you can't say it. So you can add it to a page and amend and attach it to your 5 wishes. That's fine. This is kind of a starting point for a lot of people, but you can continue on with it. Each of these statements, they're all written in the affirmative. So they're all saying, please do this for me, or I wish to have this. So it's all saying, yes, please do this. If there's anything that you see that you don't want that's included in that list, as the instruction says right under the headline of my wish for how comfortable I want to be, it says, please cross out anything that you don't agree with. So you can cross out a whole statement, the whole bullet point statement, or if there's just part of it that you want to cross out, you can cross out just part of it. And that's the same as when you're filling it out digitally as well. So the first bullet point there says, I don't want to be in pain, and I want my doctor to give me enough medicine to relieve my pain, even if that means that I'll be drowsy or sleep more than I would otherwise. And for some people, honestly, this changes the equation. I haven't met many people that have said, yes, I want to be in pain. I don't think I've seen any 5 wishes that has that statement that says I don't want to be in pain. Not many people have crossed out that statement. But I've seen a lot of people give additional instruction or cross out the statement that continues there that talks about pain management. And if I prefer to have enough pain medicine to relieve my pain, even if that means that I'll be drowsy or sleep more than I would otherwise. So as an example, I remember very vividly sitting down with a couple as they filled out 5 wishes. It was interesting because the first thing that they said, we've been married for, I don't remember what the number, it was over 50 years, 55 years, something like that. We've been married for a long time. We'll know if we have to make a decision for one another, we'll know what to do. And I said, well, okay, that's wonderful. I'm so glad. But let's just dig into this a little bit. And even if you'll know what to do for each other, it still helps to be able to have something that's in writing for your kids or for your doctor if you're not with each other. So they said, okay, well, we'll do that. And it was interesting that they started at wish number 3. And the way that that happened was they had the hard copy of 5 wishes in front of them. So they were just turning the pages. And I think they stopped at the place that felt like it was the easiest starting stop place. So that's okay to do. And I'd encourage you, especially if you're going through this workshop process right now as part of this series and you're filling out 5 wishes for yourself, and maybe you're thinking about who else in your family or who of your friends could benefit from 5 wishes, which I'd say all adults would benefit from 5 wishes. But sometimes this is an easier place to start. Sometimes it's wish 3, sometimes it's wish 5. It depends on 2 things, I would say. One would be kind of ease and comfort. What feels like it's the easiest place to jump into this conversation? And then the other thing is relevance. Does it matter? Do you care? Do you care about it? And for many people, these topics in wish 3 are the things that they care the most about, especially when it comes to pain and pain management. Because for some people, when they think about what happens if I'm very sick and especially if I'm approaching the end of life, the biggest thing on their radar, maybe their biggest worry or concern or fear, is pain. So when they see the option to be able to express their preferences on this, they kind of zero in on it and they say, oh, that's where I want to start. That's important to me. That means something. So this can be a starting point. But back to this couple that I mentioned, as they were filling out 5 wishes and starting with this wish and this consideration about pain management as the very first thing that they're thinking about. I remember the husband said, well, I think the most important thing to me is to be awake and present with the family for as long as I can be. And what he said was, I'm willing to be in a little bit of pain if that means that I have more time to be present with the family and able to communicate, able to talk. And his wife looked at him and she had this kind of puzzled look on her face. And she said, are you nuts? If it hasn't been said, it's not going to get said. Give me whatever you got to give me. I don't want to be in pain, whatever it takes. I don't want to be in pain, right? So that was her like waving the flag of saying, well, he might want that, but I don't want that. Different things, right? And I remember the look on their faces. They kind of looked at each other with this kind of surprised look, like it was very different from what they expected. So the first kind of countenance in their face was kind of like, huh. Then the second thing was, okay. So they were surprised that there was a difference of opinion. And then they said, okay, if that's what you want, great, that's what we would do. But I offer that example just because that story, I think, in my mind, it showed it showed how likely it is, even within the people that we're closest to, within our own homes, within our own families, people who we know so well, until we actually talk about these things, we don't know what we don't know. And I think what most families do, and this probably happens at bedsides everywhere, every day, is that we wind up caring for somebody who we love and we want to do the absolute best for them. And if we're put in a place where we have to make a decision, whether it's about life support treatment or if it's a decision about pain medication, our likely instinct is to make a decision based on what we would have decided for ourselves. Sometimes that may match what our family member or close friend would want. Sometimes it may not. And the only way to know for sure is to talk about it ahead of time and have that conversation in the back of our minds if we have to draw on it, and have something in writing that gives us a guidebook and something to point to, something to draw on if we're ever in that place of caring for somebody who we care about. So, that really is the importance and the significance of each of these items in Wish 3, is that it's unpacking and it's painting a picture again, so to speak, of what good care and caregiving and comfort means to you at a practical level. So this is not theory at all. This is not, it doesn't matter what surveys say most people would want. It doesn't matter what your spouse would say that they want for themselves, or your kids, or your doctor. This is all about what you say is important to you and what makes you feel comfortable or what makes you feel uncomfortable, what gives you some peace, and what would give you fear and anxiety. That's what these things are meant to unpack. So as we go down the rest of this list in Wish number 3, we talked about pain management. The next bullet point says, if I show signs of depression, nausea, shortness of breath, or hallucinations, I want my caregivers to do whatever they can to help me. The next one, I wish to have a cool, moist cloth put on my head if I have a fever. I want my lips and mouth kept moist to stop dryness. Let me tell you a little, I don't know whether it's a backstory or just part of the motivation for including some of these things in here. If you can't tell yet, part of what the strategy is here behind these wishes 3, 4, and 5, it is a way for you to give direction about what's important to you. That's true. And it serves that function well. Keep in mind that family members would be looking at this document if there is a time where you or whoever's filled out 5 wishes is very sick and probably doesn't have the ability to communicate or respond or make requests about what would help them to feel comfortable. I remember one woman phrasing it so perfectly and simply when she was explaining the story of how her husband's last days and weeks played out. She said simply this. She said, I've never cared for a dying husband before, and I wasn't sure what to do. Simple. Makes a lot of sense. And she said, I wasn't sure exactly what to do, but I knew I wanted to do everything right. And as she was explaining this story, she said, I was able to look at 5 wishes and know what my husband wanted and do some of these simple things. And if it's from wish 3, something as simple as that cool, moist cloth on a forehead, keeping lips moist if they're dry, part of that is just educating people who want to be good caregivers to know what they can do. Sometimes families will ask us as they're filling out 5 wishes for the first time, they might get to wish 3 and they might say, well, why should I have to fill out a form or answer a question to say, I want my lips to be kept moist if they're dry? Wouldn't somebody just automatically know to do that? If my lips are dry, won't somebody do something to keep my lips moist? Hopefully so, yes. But if not, or if somebody is there in a room or at the bedside with somebody who's very sick and they have the best intentions of the world, but they just don't know what to do, which is probably the majority of us who are not trained as nurses or maybe have never been at the bedside of somebody who's sick. Our desires, our intentions are 100% pure, but sometimes we just don't know what to do. And that's some of the rationale and the reason for why these items are included in 5 wishes, when, yes, it's true, they could be considered kind of standard form of good care, taking good care of somebody, whether it's a family member or a patient. The alternative is to not say it at all, to not touch it, to not express it, And, you know, honestly, I think that's the default in our societies, in our homes, in our communities, in our families today, is to not talk about these things. And after a few generations, then these things get lost, because this was part of an art of humanity, of caring for somebody, that was taught traditionally by experience, when families were still likely to be geographically, physically close to one another. And a very young generation would see how their parents cared for the older generation. And sometimes that could involve caring for an older generation with illness. Today, partly just because of geography and people spread in all different places, we don't have that opportunity to have that experience naturally. So part of the intention here is, if we're using that image of painting a picture, is that we're helping to paint a picture of what dignified care can look like. Not from theory, but from practice, to be able to say, if you want to do something that's helpful, here's something that's easy, that's doable, and that matters. Because if it's easy and doable, but nobody cares and it doesn't matter, then why bother? But if it's important enough for you to be able to put a check mark next to something, or if any of these things are really important to you, like you look at it, you say, that is the thing for me. You can put a star next to it, and or underline it, add your own punctuation to it. Any of those things are possible. Just continuing down the list, the next option says, I wish to have warm baths often. I wish to be kept fresh and clean. I wish to be massaged with warm oils as often as I can be. This one's kind of funny, especially since it includes, I say funny, it's not funny as in comical. It's interesting as people fill this out and talk about it together. I remember even in my own family talking about 5 wishes with my parents. And when my mom got to this section, she said, oh, I don't like to be massaged. She said it causes her to be ticklish, right? She said, anytime I've ever had a massage, it creeps me out. I don't like it. So you can imagine somebody in that situation whose experience of massage is that it creeps me out or it's ticklish. You know, they want to say, don't touch me. Well, what happens if you can't say that, if you can't communicate it? And then your family thinks, well, wouldn't it be nice to have the massage therapist come in and spend an hour with mom? Well, maybe not, if that's not what mom wants. So in talking about it with my mom, I said, oh, wow, well, that's good to know. I always knew that my mom would make these little comments about, you know, being ticklish if she was touched on the shoulder. You know, you come up from behind her, and you put your hand on her shoulder, and she'd kind of bristle at the surprise of it. But I didn't know she felt that strongly about it. And then I remember asking her, I said, well, how about, I know my mom loved to get manicures and get her hair done. And those were things that kind of little pamper things that she would like. And I said, well, how about a manicure and a hand massage? And she said, oh yeah, that'd be great. You can do my nails, that'd be nice. And I really love a hand massage. So I said, so hand massage isn't ticklish to you? And she said, no, not at all. So I have that image kind of burned in my mind, that if there's a time that I'm trying to help my mom to be comfortable, I'm not going to call in the massage therapist, or if the massage therapist comes, I'll say, just focus on her hands. And I'll know that she's receiving that kind of care that would help her to feel comfortable and happy, and be responsive to what she's said, not responsive to what I assume she might want. So as we keep going down the list, there are other things there that the next one touches on: being kept clean if I've lost control of my bowels or my bladder. And for some people, this is one of the biggest concerns. They're more concerned about this than pain management. They're concerned about issues or questions of dignity and privacy and independence and all of those things. And the one option is to not say it, to not address it, to not talk about it. The other one is to say, you know, this means something to me. This matters to me. So if you can help me manage whatever the situation is, if I don't have any control of my bowel or bladder, then help me to be clean. And a family or care providers, long-term care providers, hospice care providers, if they know that that is something that's of particular concern, then they can pay particular attention to it. So again, this care of someone at the bedside is not a cookie cutter response. It sometimes can be, but that's not the best way to do it. The better approach is to know and how to really customize and tailor the actual care based on what matters to the person, what's significant to them. Goes on to say, I wish to have personal care, like my hair combed, teeth brushed, or I wish to have religious readings or spiritual readings or poems read. Again, things that might be done that would bring comfort. And the last option, at least on that list, is I wish to know about options for hospice care and how that could help me and my loved ones. That's not saying I want hospice care today. That's saying if I'm very sick and I'm not able to communicate, if my family is making decisions for me, my healthcare agent is making decisions for me, my healthcare providers want to know what I'm interested in, then make sure that hospice care is discussed, talked about. This is a place, honestly, where if you have any very specific thoughts, concerns, questions about hospice care, that you could write it in the margins. If it's something that you really want, you can underline it. You can put a star next to it. You can write in, yes, I really like this. I would want this. This is important to me. If you have a particular hospice that you trust, that you would like to have contacted, you can write that in there. And if you have any questions about that, I'm sure everybody on the team at Yolo Hospice can help you to answer the questions about what types of options are available to you. And who to call and all of that. But again, this is something that too often, this question about understanding what options for hospice care are. In all the years that I've been talking with families about this, I can honestly say that I don't know of anyone who's come back to me and said, we received hospice care and I just wish we would have waited a little bit longer. Nobody says that. More often, I hear from families who say, we received hospice care. Hospice helped us to take care of my mom or my dad or my husband or my wife, whatever the case is. And it was so helpful. I wish we could have had access to that help sooner. That's a refrain that I've heard repeated so often. So what that means is not that you need to ask for hospice sooner than you should. It just means that it's okay to talk about it at any point in the progress of a serious illness, and to talk about it with your healthcare provider and to talk about it with your family, so that people know your thoughts on it. No matter what your thoughts are, good, bad, indifferent, any of the above are all legitimate. What matters is, what's your point of reference? What would be your direction that you would provide to those who are trying to take good care of you, whether it's your personal connections or whether it's your healthcare providers. You're painting that picture for them to know what the right thing to do is, if the right thing is based on what's important to you and what's right for you. So as we kind of wrap up this wish number 3, I'll give you, of course, the reminder that we are here to answer any questions that you have, provide additional backup resources from conversation guides to translations. Our toll-free number is there, the 1-8885-WISHES number. If you have any questions at all as you're filling out Wish 3 or any other part of 5 Wishes, our team is happy to talk through that with you, as well as the Yolo Hospice team right there in your own neighborhood. You're welcome to reach out to and talk to about this. And you're also welcome to reach out to me personally. That's my personal email address. I've heard from a few of you over the course of this series. Each time we've done the series, I've communicated with a few of you directly, and I'm always happy to do that. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if I can be of help to you as you're navigating through the process. And you know, I'd just also give the reminder that wherever you are in the process of completing your 5 wishes, whether you're kind of participating in each of these sessions and picking up information and then thinking you'll fill out each one at the end, that's okay. If you're filling it out with each wish by week, that's also okay. And if you're having a hard time filling it out, you're not alone. There are other, lots of people that will look at this and they have exact and very concrete preferences and answers that they want to write down. And then others, when they look at this, they might think, well, to me, it's not really a matter of saying exactly what I want, but actually thinking about what do I want? Like what would help me to feel comfortable? For some of us, it's an automatic, it's an instinct, it's a hard thought that, meaning concrete thought, that we know exactly what we want. And others may have never given a whole lot of thought to this. And when we stop and think about it, it's okay to be unsure of the answer. Just like we've all, or many of us could be in that boat if we're caring for somebody we love and we want to do the right things, but we say, well, we've never done this before. The other thing that most of us probably haven't done is thought about this for ourselves, right? It oftentimes is something that's pushed to the side. So when we do give it thought for the first time for ourselves, it's not a surprise if if some of these are unknown answers. So bottom line there is that just to say that it's okay if you don't feel clarity. Continue to give it thought, and in all the places where you do have clarity in 5 wishes, then put that down in writing. And if you need help talking through some of your thoughts, then there are resources to help you with that between YOLO and Aging with Dignity. And remember also your doctor. It is a very good idea the next time you go in for a doctor's visit to bring your 5 wishes in. And if you have it completed, to make sure you give a copy and it's included in your medical record. Or if you're in the midst of still completing it, especially if you're seeing your doctor sometime over the course of the next few weeks and you're still participating in this workshop, bring that to your appointment and talk over any questions, or say, here's what I'm thinking. Does this make sense? Or is there anything else that I should think about knowing what my current medical condition is? So you are the expert in what's important to you, but you also don't have to do it on your own. Plenty of help to be able to help process along the way. So with that, I think I'll wrap up my remarks, and then I'll turn it over to Allison, and we can look at what questions you might have been posting in the chat that she's now converted to her own canvas.
I'm going to unmute myself. All right. Thank you very much, Paul. Let's see. So the first question I have is there specific language to express my wish for my hospice provider?
Yes. So the place to do that is in Wish 3 under the last option. And if the question is about express your wish for your hospice provider. So say, for example, you wanted your hospice provider to be Yolo Hospice. You could write, I would like to receive hospice care from Yolo Hospice, or call Yolo Hospice, or I like Yolo Hospice, or whatever name you want to insert there. And I would use that blank space that's right at the bottom, use the blank space at the bottom of wish 3 to just write that in. Write in the name of the provider. If there's a specific person who you know, I know a lot of times a family might know of or have somebody in the family who's a hospice nurse. They'd say, call so-and-so. Remember, you can do that for any parts of 5 wishes. I mentioned similar type of thing for faith communities and places of worship. We touched on that a little bit on wish number 2. If you wanted your healthcare agent to consult with a priest or a rabbi or a minister on religious tradition and involving that in your clinical care decisions, you could either say, please talk to a priest or a rabbi or a minister, or you could say, please talk to Reverend so-and-so or Rabbi so-and-so. So the bottom line there is that the level of specificity is all based on your preference. You can be as specific as you want or as general as you want.
Great. Okay. Do you have ideas for what language to use for section 2 other than talking to my doctor? Like how to find ideas for the specific language?
Sure. Do you know when they reference section 2? I wonder what that one is about. If that's wish 2?
Ellie, I'm going to ask for your clarification on that one, if I could.
It was pertaining to medical devices. And,
oh, medical device. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I do think a doctor or a healthcare provider really is the best resource for that. And so 2 reasons. Number one, they're likely to be trained and at least have not just the book knowledge, but the practical experience to be able to share with you. And number 2, because they can help you take into consideration your current medical condition. There are places, and you can Google for statistics and data on the effectiveness of different types of medical devices or life support treatment. The reason why we don't push out a lot of that data and information is because you might look at statistics and they give you the averages for a whole swath of people. The reality is you have all of us, you, me, everybody, we have a very specific condition. If our condition is that we don't have any chronic conditions and we are relatively healthy, then that is an important piece of information to consider. If it's that we have, diabetes and high blood pressure, and we had lung cancer 2 years ago, and all of those pieces of the puzzle completely change the puzzle for each person. So I would tend to put more emphasis and trust in clinical information that's directed at you personally, as opposed to average statistics when it comes to making decisions in advance about life support treatment or medical devices.
Great. Okay. Thank you. With regard to pain management, are hospice providers on the same level of provision as my doctor?
So I'd say hospice providers are excellent. Some of the best experts in the medical community on pain management. Pain management and really, I would say, responding to all forms of suffering and helping to alleviate all forms of suffering. That is the expertise of hospice. It's what hospice does so well. And for that reason, it is commonplace that doctors, whether it's primary care physicians or specialists, will often consult with hospice care providers, or also palliative care physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, to bring in their expertise even before a person may qualify for hospice care. So hospice providers do this very well. I would say the earlier that both hospice professionals, as well as, I think the important note here is that it's not just hospice professionals, but palliative care providers also, the earlier that they're involved, the better, because managing pain, responding to pain, focusing on comfort is what they excel at. It's what they do very well. And I think one bit of confusion, especially when I just use the phrase or the description, focusing on comfort, sometimes that term gets tossed out, comfort care, and it's assumed that if somebody is being provided with comfort care, that they're no longer pursuing curative care as well. That's a misunderstanding that they are exclusive. Sometimes they might be, but it should all, healthcare or care for somebody who's seriously ill should always involve comfort, no matter what, whether that person is continuing to pursue curative treatment or not. So they're not exclusive, or they shouldn't be, they don't have to be.
Great. Right. If I change my 5 wishes document slightly after it is witnessed, do I need to redo it?
Good question. So I'm gonna pull out an important word there, that is slightly. Slightly matters a lot. The easiest way, I think, to explain this is that if you are changing any specific instructions in wish 1 or wish 2, you should fill out a new document and fill out a new 5 wishes. If you're changing some of your preferences in wishes 3, 4, or 5, if you're adding additional detail, you're providing more information. So for example, if you filled out your 5 wishes and now you're looking at this option about asking for information about hospice, and you want to add a note into that, you could certainly add that note into your 5 wishes in the margin. You might want to date it to show when you added it, but you wouldn't have to fill out an entirely new document and sign it or witness it again. So if you're clarifying a personal preference, adding a new piece of information, that does not require a new document. If you are changing any of the more legally intricate decisions in wishes 1 or 2, then you should update and have a new document.
Thank you. All right. Can you address special needs of veterans and the importance of the 5 wishes form?
Yeah, good question. And we work with a lot of providers that are connected to the VA, as well as military hospitals and healthcare providers all around the country. So a few specific questions with veterans. Number one, I know that hospice providers often communicate with veterans to make sure that they understand the benefits that are available to them as a veteran. Oftentimes the benefits that are provided to veterans would include, potentially payments to survivors. It could include assistance with burial. It could include assistance with burial at a VA cemetery. And to do that, it usually requires paperwork that the veteran would have. So one thing that would be important to think about is, do I have my paper trail put together? And is it accessible to either family or my healthcare providers who would be not just making decisions about care, although that could come into it. I know my uncle receives most of his care at a VA hospital, and I don't think he'd go anywhere else because he feels comfortable there. He knows the people there, and my aunt knows that that's where he wants to go, and that's important information to know. So that could touch where you're getting your care. It could touch benefits after death. And the other question that's sometimes included in advanced care planning for veterans is not just about the benefits that are provided, but also military honors. Would a person want to have military honors as part of their memorial service or their funeral or their burial? And this again is something that is a very important and personal question, because there are veterans who, if they're asked that question, their eyes would light up, and they would say, yes, you know, of course I would want that. I think my dad would probably be in that position. And there are others who, if they were asked that question, might decline for any number of reasons. So those are some considerations that would be particular to veterans.
Okay, thanks, Paul. A new question just came up. Where would issues of dementia and Alzheimer's fit into the 5 wishes?
So the preferences for medical care in case of dementia would be addressed in wish 2. If there were instructions that you wanted to give about life support treatment and preferences in case of dementia, that would be addressed in wish number 2 specifically. But I would also add that that the entirety of 5 wishes, and especially wishes 3, 4, and 5, come into play at all stages of care for someone with dementia. We talked a little bit earlier when we were talking in wish number 1 about naming a healthcare agent, that healthcare agent would be activated. They would start making decisions on your behalf anytime you're not able to speak for yourself. Doesn't necessarily mean a terminal condition or that you're near the end of life, but just if you lose the ability to speak for yourself. So the same would be true for somebody living with dementia. If there were a time that they were not clearly processing information and able to make their own decisions, then that healthcare agent could be triggered, where they would be the decision maker if that person has lost capacity to make their decisions in that moment, in that day. And as we know with dementia, sometimes there's a bad day and sometimes there's a good day. So that could flux back and forth. But when it comes specifically to wish 3 and wishes for comfort, this is all about caring well for people. This is not specific to somebody's last day or week or month of life or year of life. It's about how to care well and how to keep somebody comfortable and how to acknowledge and respect their dignity. So wishes 3, 4, and 5 come into play in any caregiving setting and can be especially useful for people living with dementia, because just like somebody sitting at the bedside of somebody nearing the end of life might say, well, I've never done this before. Those of us who have people who we love who are living with dementia, we may also say, I want to do the best thing for my dad, but I'm not sure what that is. Well, if I look at wish 3, I've got a few answers on physical comfort, and we'll talk more about wish number 4 on other things that would help him to feel comfortable, that would be based on his request too. So these all come into play because they're all focused on good caregiving.
Well, I think that's all the questions that I was able to harvest from the question pool. Are there any others? Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, I think that's it then from me. Back over to you, Louise.
Great. Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Paul. Wonderful as always. We will just close on out here. So before you leave, if you could take a few minutes to answer the next poll on your screen. Your answers, as always, help utilize. We utilize these to build out our programming. So let me bring up the post, launch polling. Thank you all for being here. And I'll leave that up for you guys to answer as I continue to close out. So, and please be sure to scroll down on that poll. There's some answers there at the bottom. So we look forward to seeing you all again next week, same time, same place for Wish 4, How I Want People to Treat Me. And please remember you have homework. Please call 5 Wishes toll-free 888-594-7437 if you need additional support to complete Wish 3. And until then, please keep well and safe. Until this time next week. I'm going to end that polling.